Hey guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage. We're working on the 33 3-window project again in today's video. So last two videos we worked on was the rear and front suspension on the frame, getting that stuff kind of locked in, and we worked on those door hinges in the last video, which was a huge win, and I got these doors opening and shutting pretty darn nicely considering how bad they were. So a couple things I realized since those videos that really weren't communicated in between those videos. So number one, the rear suspension, what I realized, and I totally spaced when I was doing this, and this is a downside of having Project ADD like I do, is I totally forgot this car actually has a 37 LaSalle transmission that uses a torque tube. So those split rear radius rods like we did, or rear wishbones, aren't correct. I was going to add some additional bars in there to add some stability to the car, but that totally does not work. We're going to be using a rear torque tube, so I'm going to be addressing that at a later time. No big deal. Right now it's all locked in, at least I can keep moving. Other thing is the B-pillar wood. The B-pillar wood I thought was what was flexing and moving around was rotten, and upon a further inspection when we were doing the door hinges and bending and tweaking on those, it was not that. It was actually because the B-pillar isn't locked into anything, and it was flexing the whole body and rear quarter panel in and out when you would open and shut the doors and bend on anything. So I shoved some blocks in there when we were doing the door hinges, and quickly the B-pillar area got really tight and nothing was moving around like it was before. So I think I can work around that wood by adding some additional metal bracing, and it should be okay, hopefully. So what we're going to be working on now is the floors on the car. I need to get floors in this thing so it's all locked in. So I'm going to be attacking this a little differently than the other projects. What I'm going to actually be working on is getting metal that is a little thicker. So instead of doing thin gauge sheet metal like an 18 or 16 gauge, putting beads in it and all of that, I'm actually going to be using 14 gauge and like 12 gauge metal in here that you do not have to put beads in. We can lay it in, but you can still kind of form it to the sub rails that we've built. A lot of the cars that I've seen that were done even a little bit better back in the day, so to speak, that's basically what they did, is they used some heavier gauge metal, laid it down on the floors, and they did not have to do all that crazy beadwork. It also is going to add some stability and some area that we can add some of the bracing in there and actually weld right to it, add tabs, all that kind of stuff, and we're not dealing with sheet metal that might just rip out. So tacking a little differently. I got some metal I scored at my local scrap metal yard. They just got some fresh metal in these big 4-foot sections, so I'm going to be able to use those, piece together this floor. I'm going to make some patterns and start getting some metal cuts. So enough of me talking, let's get to work. Alright, so I got our mock-up engine. I'm back in here, and some of this stuff I'm kind of like have not 100% where I want everything to be. I'm in the ballpark. So one of the things we're fighting with this, running this 34 stock cross member and trying to get everything to fit right, is the engine actually needs to sit up a little higher than it would have originally. And I had it mocked up before with the blower and those old zoomy pipes and all that stuff, and it flowed really, really nicely. But I was still trying to play with, do I have the angle right of the transmission, all that stuff. And so I jacked up on everything, and you can see I got the trans sitting in there. I just have some wood stuffed under it just to get it at the right approximate angle. It could probably even go up maybe another little bit, but it's right in the ballpark. But what I did is just quick slid a pulley on here so that I could make sure that I had room underneath of the cross member here. So that was something that we were a little worried about when I was talking to Ron about the engine. He was mentioning, obviously, with the right angle drive and all that stuff coming off with the blower, the pulleys, you know, it adds some length to the engine in the front, and I wanted to make sure we had room over that to put these pulleys here. and we could get a belt on. So with just throwing that on there for diameter, it looks like it'll be pretty good as long as the pulley doesn't get much larger than the stock diameter. So that's pretty good. Other thing I needed to do to throw the engine and trans in is just to see the height of where the trans is going to be. Now these LaSalle transmissions are pretty small overall, and they're nice and flat on the top. So a lot of times, like in the Stroll car, we can get the floor almost totally flat. It looks like on this one, we're not going to be able to get it totally flat. It's just a little up over, but the nice thing is they are pretty small transmissions, so we can keep the cutout really small there, and it'll have a real small tunnel as far as that goes. So now that I have this all in here and I have an idea what we need, I'm going to take some pattern board, lay it down, and start laying out our pattern and shape of everything. And then we can start laying it out on our metal and get stuff cut out. Oh boy. Oh boy. Thought I smelled something.
What? Just cut through the sand.
It was starting to.
Yep.
Whoops. I was like, what is that really gross smell? Oh, that's the stand getting cut in half. Sorry, GoPro. Whoops, sorry. right, so a little bit of wrestling around yesterday. We got this all fitted in. I just took a little bit of, sanding some edges and different stuff like that, but we got everything fitting real sweet in this thing. See how the floor just rolls up in the back there pretty nicely. There's one little spot back there that I have to push down by hand, but it's a real nice fit in here. Like you can literally see, I just pushed it down, holds itself down, just kind of sanded this all really nice. Everything fits well and rolls, and you can see everything here, a nice flat floor, and it worked out pretty darn good. The hardest part was just obviously doing that little bit of bend in the back with the 14 gauge. But it worked out really nicely. And then in the back here, what I did is I left it short here because I'm going to make a piece that's going to come off and go down, and then go down into the bottom where the stock floor went. So I can make that. That's really just kind of like a visual thing. So I could even drop down to a thinner gauge, like 16 gauge or something for that. But we can address that at a later point. But right now, today, what we're trying to get done is I'm going to get this floor. It's spot welded or stitch welded in a bunch of different spots, so it's all held down. And then I'm going to make little tabs that are kind of come off of where they had made some tabs. So right here they had some tabs that somebody just torch cut, I guess when they maybe channeled the body harder or whatever. Torch cut this off, so I'm going to clean them up and add to them and kind of, again, use sort of what they had done. And then we can build something for the B-pillar. In the back, we can just go off the wheel wells. They have little tabs, so I'm going to clean them up, kind of use the same type of thing. And then the A-pillars, we'll just have to build little tabs off of that to go over. And we, of course, got to move the body around just to make sure it's all centered and squeezed in how we want, but got a floor. It's pretty awesome. So I'm going to get the drill out, start drilling for our rosette welds and different stuff, and then we'll get the welder out and start zapping this thing to our sub rails. So many things precariously set that you can't.
Yep.
Do not touch. We have to start over.
Yep.
According to this, we are within. .1.
0.1. That's pretty darn close to nothing.
Yeah. That could literally just be. .3, .2. So it's
Yeah, that's.
I could just be a nib of dirt.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next, that clamp still.
Got one here. Back side of it.
Not a big deal. All right, so after a bunch of work trying to push and pull and get the body all where it needed to be, we got everything tacked in place, and we have the body with no clamps, all hooked together, and Moon is testing our new floor. So it's pretty great that we have a floor now, super sturdy. I sat in there, everything's really good. What I ended up doing, because the A-pillar is so narrow on these cars versus like when I did the A-pillar on the Schroll car, I just put some temporary tabs in there welded to the floor to hold the A-pillar and the cowl up in place. But really what gives the structure is this door sill inner rocker area. So we have to actually fill this area in much like we did on the Schroll car, and that's what's going to really give it a lot of structure. And then we can also lock it in at the back. I was going to try and make something work for the B-pillar, but I quickly realized that I need to build that door sill and integrate that into everything. And making something now, I was going to end up fighting myself when I was making the door sill area later on. So that'll be one of the next projects. The other area that we left open was in the back, right where the tail part of the floors would be. It needs to come out and actually drop down and go to where the original floor was. I need to make that piece separate. It is not something that's really structural at this point. It's more something just for visual purposes to close in the floor section. So I will do that, probably one of those little off-camera things that we do in between videos. But yeah, we got a floor. It's bolted down to the frame. Crazy. So very, very happy. We ended up nailing it with the wedge channel. So we have a channel down. I actually brought it up just a tiny bit in the front, and we brought the rear up to where it was when we had it all mocked up in one of the previous videos, and it's working out really, really, really well. So really excited to get the floor in this thing and get it tacked to the body, and the door is open and shut now. So we are like, just to think of like I don't know, a month or more ago, we've come a long way, but I have a lot to do still at this point. So the door sills, I'm going to build in like a little hoop section and tie the B-pillars together, and also give us an area to attach for the trunk hinges in some of the upcoming videos. So it's going to be a lot more of this like structural type work to get the car under control so that it is not a floppy mess. But doing these floors this way, I think will be a good alternative to some of the ways I've done it before, because we are going to be integrating so much stuff into it. So that is our huge victory for today's video on the 33.3 window. Appreciate you guys following along. Thanks. Catch you later.
Just trying to get in the car like normal. The metal's cold on my butt.
Yeah. Oh, there's room in here. That's pretty much like when we're driving.
But I want to look out the other window, Dad. What do you think, Moon? What do you think?
Oh yeah.
Is he whacking you in the head with his tail?
Normal stuff. If I just don't have a seat at all, it'll be absolutely perfect.